We've reached the final speaker for the day. Her name is Captain Jackie Barnum. Captain Barnum graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 2014 with a Bachelor of Science majoring in Informational Technology and received her commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. After completing the basic school in Quantico, Virginia, she received her assignment as a logistics officer and went on to serve 2 years in Okinawa, Japan. In 2017, Captain Barnum moved to San Diego, where she was assigned to 1 MEF headquarters group on Camp Pendleton, where she was selected as the company commander for Combat Service Support Company and assumed command in 2018 and was promoted to the rank of captain. She moved to Newport, Rhode Island in 2020 and served as the first company officer at the Naval Academy Preparatory School and provided mentorship and guidance to future Naval and Marine Corps officers. In 2022, Captain Barnum started Mentor Monday on her Instagram page. To date, she has consolidated over 400 volunteer mentors and has responded to over 200 mentor requests from men and women across all ranks and services, and recently received the Marine Corps' Megan McClung Leadership Award. She has recently graduated from Expeditionary Warfare School and is currently completing a Master's in Defense and Strategic Studies through the Naval War College. Please help me welcome Captain Jackie Barnum.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you all. Thank you so much. That was really, really kind. I first want to say thank you to the gentleman in the front. You put this all together. And for everybody in the audience, somebody's letting you be here today. And you're taking the time away from your normal job to be here today. And these kind of events are very, very important. Conventions, conferences, taking yourself out of your normal job to network, to learn something new, just to think amongst other people in the same organization. These don't happen enough. And honestly, thank you to the people who put this together and for including me in this. I think I'm the first military member to speak at this, and I hope that continues as these go on. So the first question I have too is, where are my Marines? There has to be some that were in the Marine Corps in here. None? One? Okay, awesome. What was your, 2? What was your MOS? Communication, okay. Awesome, okay, wonderful. Any other service? I know we have Air Force in here. Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you so much. That's awesome. So I have personally been learning so much today. However, the most important thing I've learned today is that it's pronounced coffee, not coffee. So if anything I take away is that's important. All right, so I'm going to be talking about my personal lessons in leadership and just a few of these pictures. So I'm going to explain the pictures. This one over here is when I was at the Naval Academy Preparatory School in Newport, Rhode Island. So what that is basically a 5th year for the Naval Academy. So I get a lot of recruited athletes, a lot of football players. So I had 80 students assigned to me. 17 of those were going to be going to the Naval Academy to play football. 20 of those are prior enlisted sailors or Marines, and then the rest are students who the Naval Academy is identified as just being deficient in one area that they need just to kind of prep themselves. So they take math, physics, chemistry, English for a year and then go to the Naval Academy. The second picture was when, not a stage picture, someone thought it was a staged photo, but that's actually me giving a real hug to someone, and I was extra happy because I was giving command to the next person. So after, when you're in charge of, at that time I had 150 Marines under my charge. So I had motor transport Marines, engineers, and food service. So you could imagine having 150 18, 19, 20-year-olds, your phone is never on silent, ever, because you are answering that call, as everyone is used to, answering the call no matter what. When there's a DUI or a domestic violence issue or something, you are responding. So I was very relieved to be handing that off to the next person. Well, that was the most rewarding job I've had. And then the other 2 pictures was me just at my change of command ceremony, and then one of me at the Naval Academy. Okay, so pretty straightforward what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to introduce myself a bit, talk to you about how I became a Marine, my path, and my why, and how that why has changed. And then we're going to dive into some leadership lessons, and then I'm going to talk to you all about your influence and the amazing power that you all have to influence the next generation, and ultimately the people that are replacing us. Because at the end of the day, it's not about Jackie. It's about who can I influence to replace me and make them better than me. So the picture here is when I actually received the news that I was going to be a Marine, so at the Naval Academy. November or August of your senior year, there's literally a drop-down menu on your computer screen, and you select and rank all the different services that you could potentially be. So surface warfare officer, submarine officer, EOD, a Navy SEAL, aviation, Marine ground. So I put Marine Corps ground as my first choice, and I was lucky to have received that. Fun fact, my walkout song when I received that was Hot in Here by Nelly. So just a little trivia. Okay, so I am from the Bay Area of Northern California Bay Area, so about an hour north of San Francisco. I am not from a military family at all, which I think is interesting because a lot of people aren't from military families, and we kind of think that they should know a little bit of the military or they should know about the organization, but I had no idea. I was from a very patriotic family, though. My grandfather served on NYPD for 20 years as a detective, and then he was an expert fingerprint analyst. And so my family really was very, very supportive, but really I didn't know anything about the military. As I already said, I won't repeat all that, but I commissioned in 2014, so I've been in for 8 years. And then I have had the opportunity to speak at some colleges, a lot of ROTC programs, so college-age students, and lately my social media following is kind of how I've been able to translate my experiences and what I really care about and talk about my experiences and share those with people. So I currently have over 80,000 followers, and I've been able to use that platform to amplify the messages of others and really use that to facilitate mentorship. So I'll get into that later, but basically how that started was, so I'm, posting about leadership or posting about being a logistics officer or posting about the Naval Academy, and people would send me a message and say, can you explain, officer candidate school? Can you talk about your experience? Well, no, I can't because I didn't go through that program. I went to Naval Academy. So, but maybe I can find somebody who can talk to you about that. And so through that, I would get these random questions, people interested in the Navy or the Air Force or transitioning to law enforcement. I get that request a lot, but I can't answer those questions. So what I've been able to do is every Monday, and even today, I have one going on right now where I post those different requests, and then people who follow me will say, hey, that's me, like I can talk about that. And then I just facilitate those mentors. So that's become kind of organically how that has grown into what it is now. So on September 11th, 2001, so I'm going to age myself, but I was in 4th grade at the time. So my uncle, Bill, over here on the left, was on the 98th floor of the North Tower. Being in 4th grade at the time, that's a very impressionable age. So I knew in my heart that I wanted to serve because I didn't understand how could somebody so far away want to hurt people that they don't even know and take over 3,000 lives just because they hate us so much. Like that just I just could not comprehend what that meant, but I knew I wanted to do something about it. My uncle left behind his son, Nicky, who was in 2nd grade at the time, and his son who was starting his freshman year of high school. So I knew I wanted to do something. So in my heart, I knew pursuing the military in some capacity was what I wanted to do. And what that looked like, I didn't know. So fast forwarding a few years, I don't remember how I heard about the Naval Academy, but my mom remembers me on the computer looking up the Naval Academy. So then we took a trip to Washington, D.C., and I said, I would like to visit this place. My parents were like, oh, the Naval Academy, like, that's interesting. Like, oh, free college. Okay, that really is interesting now. We like that. So we visited. Absolutely fell in love with that campus, and then I go to high school, and 16-year-old, 15-year-old Jackie, young girl, that dream begins to fade because, of course, I'm a young girl, Self-doubt is taking over. I keep hearing these, people telling me, you would never get in. Do you know the statistics of people that get in? 60,000 people apply, only 1,000 get in. So I'm like, oh wow, I guess no one else thinks that I can do this, so maybe I'll just let it go. So I was starting to apply to actual graphic design programs. And my senior year of high school, so my heart was like decided pretty much. I'm gonna do graphic design, that's that. Senior year of high school, I graduate from my high school. General Angela Salinas, who's the first Latina general in the Marine Corps, happened to have graduated from my high school, came to speak. And what she said during her speech, no idea. No idea what she said, but she was wearing this exact same uniform, standing in front of my high school class, and I turned to my best friend and I said, that's gonna be me, that's it. So literally I get home that day and I tell my parents, I'm applying to the Naval Academy. They're like, it's literally like November, Jackie, like you're on your own. So I literally did my whole application, got a letter of acceptance, and in my hands I had my acceptance letter to Arizona State University for their graphic design program, and then the other hand, I had my appointment to the Naval Academy. And I was raised Catholic, but I'm not like a super religious person by any means, but I remember specifically there was a voice that said, if you don't go to the Naval Academy, you're making the wrong decision. Like those words, I heard those words. So I said, okay, I don't know like who's telling me this. I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm gonna listen to it. So after that point, went to the Naval Academy. Never at any point did I regret my decision, never even considered changing, going to a different school, never looked back. Yes, it was crazy challenging and difficult, but thankfully, I had a really good support system, and I just knew in my heart that's where I was meant to be. So a few pictures up here, too. So my Uncle Bill up here and his son, who's a paramedic now. He's doing amazing. I also had the opportunity to go to the 10-year, the memorial, the opening of the Ground Zero Memorial. And so I was a midshipman at that time. So I was a sophomore at the Naval Academy. So I wore my uniform, wore my whites, and got to see this, the opening of this. And I'll never forget this moment either. So I was leaving the ceremony. It was beautiful, moving. I got there at 5 in the morning. And because there were people who were so upset at the war that was going on, I was in my uniform. I think I was 19 years old. People started literally spitting on me, literally screaming at me, spitting on me, just as like a service member, So I just remember that, like, again, as a weird reminder of like, this is why, like, how weirdly beautiful is that? Like, we live in a country where people can stomp on the American flag and spit on service members and cuss them out. But like, I have decided that I'm gonna defend that. Like, that's beautiful to me. So that happened. Another weird, interesting reminder of what my purpose was. Every summer, you go to these like training events. So for me, I was sent on a ship for 30 days during the summer. And there was only 4 other midshipmen that were put on the USS New York, which was a newly commissioned ship. I think it was commissioned in 2009. And there's 7.5 tons of steel from the World Trade Center forged into the bow. So again, another just act of God, maybe, just reminding me over and over and over again why you're here, what your purpose is. Another picture I don't have on here, but another reminder was when Osama bin Laden was killed when I was at the Naval Academy. And I mean, just these reminders of, hey, this is what I'm fighting for, this is why I've signed up for, this is my purpose. And then this might me getting my commission, and then I've had the opportunity to come back to the Naval Academy in a working capacity. So now I have the opportunity, or I did in the last 2 years, have the opportunity to teach young midshipmen and have that impact on them and show them what it is to be a Marine and help guide them. So really everything coming full circle. So over the last 8 years, my why has changed. So it first started as my family, defending my family, my country, very patriotic reasons why I joined the military. And then when I was exposed to these kids, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, yes, my family still holds a significant weight and is a huge reason why I'm still serving, but what's kept me in is these kids, this next generation, those ones that are replacing us. Because none of these kids know, they're just midshipmen in this state. Their uniform they're wearing, it's like a made-up rank. Our ROTC kids wear just little midshipmen uniforms. Yes, they're in the Navy, but they're still figuring out what they want to do, what kind of leader they want to be, and they're so, so impressionable. So my why has become about the next leaders. And I think as leaders, it's important also to just understand that the people we're leading, their whys are going to change. So people that enter the organization, may be for benefits, for financial reasons, for patriotic reasons, whatever that is, but understand and lead them how they, by what those motivations are, and understand that they are going to change. So for me, General Salinas was a real-life example of somebody that I saw myself potentially being. She was wearing this uniform. She was standing in front of people, commanding the audience, just being a Marine. And as soon as I saw her, I knew that that was something that could be achieved. I think Walt Disney has a quote that was like, if you can dream it, you can be it. But we don't dream of things that we've never seen before. Our dreams are made up of things that we have seen. So I go by the, if you can see it, you can be it. I think technically Billie Jean King said that. I looked it up just to make sure I'm giving credit to the right person, but I'm saying it here as well. A few more things just on if you can see it, you can be it. So has anyone heard of Travis Manion? Okay, so Travis Manion was a Naval Academy graduate. He was a Marine. He was killed in Iraq in 2007. Silver Star recipient. His sister started the Travis Manion Foundation, which is absolutely amazing foundation, all about mentorship, volunteering. So his sister, Ryan, her daughter, you would think has the most amazing example of a Marine to look up to. Her uncle, who died for our country, did all these amazing things. However, Ryan Manion reached out to me to say, hey, Maggie, my daughter who's in high school, really wants to talk to you. She really wants to hear about your experience at the Naval Academy. And I just was like, me? I'm nobody. Why me? And the answer is because she relates to you. She sees you as this female Marine, and she can see herself being you and following in your footsteps. So that's just really, really important, exposing, showing that young generation who we are. And then one more story. So this actually happened last week. I happen to know somebody who is a host of a podcast called Moments in Leadership. And he was at lunch with a Marine officer who was in the Marine Corps for 15 years. And he happens to mention to my friend, oh, my daughter suddenly has this interest in going to the Naval Academy. And then my friend Dave asked, well, why? How'd that happen? He goes, oh, she started following somebody named Jackie Barnum on Instagram. That's as easy as it takes to influence somebody. You just showing them an example. She doesn't know who I am. She doesn't know anything about me, but she sees a picture of me as a midshipman, as a Marine. And these kids are so easily influenced. So the importance of mentorship. So this is my biggest thing right now. So as a leader, it's our job to empower others, to be better leaders than we were. So I personally didn't think that I would even be in the Marine Corps for this long. We have a commitment of 5 years, and then we can get out. No questions asked, easy peasy. Here I am at 8 years. And I think the reason why I'm still in is because I want to fill the gap that I have felt that there was when I was a lieutenant. I had nobody to look toward, to ask questions. There was no one who outranked me that really wrapped their arm around me and helped me out. And so what I'm trying to do is be that person. So going around the pictures, so the top left corner, so that's Calvin Fernandez. What I try to do, any unit that I'm a part of, I will sit down my top 10%. So when I have my enlisted Marines, they haven't been to college. So I would sit them down and I will say, have you, 5 of them, have you considered college? And the looks, no, they hadn't. None of them had considered it. So I said, okay, here are your opportunities. Here's how you can commission. Here, whatever. Here's a Naval Academy. Like, you should look into this one. Out of those 5, 4 were just, one was getting out. One didn't have an interest. One wasn't actually eligible. But one lit up, Calvin. And he immediately took the SAT, started to apply to college, got accepted, currently attends Xavier University in Louisiana. And I will never forget, when he finally got accepted, he came to my office and he said, "Ma'am, you saw something in me that I couldn't even see in myself." And that is our job as leaders, is to see that potential and see, okay, got it, you're right here and you're doing this right now, but what can I push you to do that you didn't even think that you were capable of? That's our purpose. Let's see, this picture in the bottom, so Emily Kasanovich, she was one of my students. She's someone who I mentored very closely when she was my student. She's at the academy now. I had such a good relationship with mentor-mentee relationship with her where she would just come and tell me everything. A few weeks ago, her brother killed himself, and she was, of course, I didn't know it had happened. Her mother asked her, "Have you told Captain Barnum? Have you talked to Captain Barnum about this?" Because her mom knew that that was a relationship that I had with her, and I was somebody that she could talk to. This top middle picture, that's a picture of my mentor, who really inspired me to do all of this that I do. That is somebody who I try to be like. No matter what the time is, no matter where I am, if I call him, I know he'll answer. I was in a really bad relationship at one point, and this man sat me down and said, "I know I'm not your father, but you will not go back to this person." This is like my boss at the time. Like, can you imagine your boss literally like giving you advice like that? Like, that was literally life-altering advice potentially that he gave me. And that's just like next level mentorship. That's not even, I don't even know the word for that other than just showing your people love, which we'll get into. But that is the kind of mentorship that I'm talking about, when we love our people and we don't care, got it, like they'll do the job, okay. But there's so much more to that we need to get into with our people and show them that we really care about them. So I'm going to get into a few of my lessons learned. How are we doing on time? Okay. So the first thing, which you think is easy, but somehow it's not, is just showing up. Half the battle is just showing up. When we don't have to be somewhere, we don't want to be somewhere, it's easy for us to stay behind our computers, really comfortable here, doing this all day. But what are our people doing? Where are they? What are they, get out there. The picture that I showed you earlier of my mentor, his name is Billy, he had a sign on the back of his door that said, "Meet a Marine today." So every single day, he would leave his office, go meet a Marine. And not just, "Hey, what's your name?" It was, "What's your name? Where are you from? What's your wife's name? What are your kids' names?" And he would commit all that to memory. And every time he would see that person, no matter what, they would be a PFC or brand new Marine, and he would say, "Hey, John, whatever," and ask just literally recite every single thing that he had learned about that person. You could see immediately that person who is usually made to feel pretty small in the Marine Corps. We like to make our junior enlisted feel teeny tiny and not very important. They would just stand so much straighter and be glowing because the big boss knew everything about them. Something that I like to do is when I have a field exercise, I will be out there in front of the Marines, getting, literally physically feeding them, like putting food. So there's a picture of me serving, at like 5 in the morning or whatever. And it's really easy to get a good pulse on command climate and morale and see how your people are doing when they're tired and hungry. And you just say, "Hey, good morning, Marine, how's it going?" And you'll see how slowly, as the days go on, that morale is declining and declining. And you can immediately make a change right then and there and make their day a little bit better. So literally physically removing yourself from your office and just getting out there and showing up. Another thing about showing up, so when we show our Marines love, so I like hugging them, I like hugging my Marines, getting to know their families. So I personally made an effort, and I have been to ballet recitals, basketball games, first communions, family events, to the point where, you know, I have now been asked to be an emergency contact for my Marines kids. So when I talk about showing up, you know, going to those things that you don't have to go to, ask, hey, your wife is, you know, going into labor. Can I be there for the day that your kid is born? Those little things your Marines or your people will never forget. Okay, so I have a question. Well, I guess I have the answer already up there, but who's married? Okay, so what is the hardest thing for you to say to your significant other usually? That they like really excited about when you say it? It says it up there. You're right. Or I'm wrong. People are like, oh my gosh, say that again. Like people freak out when we say you're right. But that's about humility, having the humility to say, hey, I messed this up. You're right, I'm wrong. That's so hard for us to say. As a leader, nothing is about you. So no one cares about your past, especially, you know, for me as a Naval Academy grad, we have a really bad reputation. People are like, oh, roll their eyes when I say I'm from the Naval Academy. I mean, because they're not wrong. No one cares. No one cares about my past. No one cares about what I've done. What matters is that I'm there doing my job. So using your past not to define your leadership and bring it up at every opportunity, but just have it refine your leadership style. Humility also means having the ability to delegate. So delegating is important. So trusting those under your command to get the job done. And even if they mess up, give them the opportunity to be challenged. Give them the guidance to succeed and provide your intent, and then let them rise to the occasion. The most important thing about humility is when things go right, it's not because of you. I didn't do it. My people did it. And praising them publicly and giving them the, you know, accolades that they deserve. When things go wrong, it's my fault. It's me, not them. So find that balance between, you know, when things go wrong, it's your name on the line. Oh, I don't know if okay. Okay, authenticity. So we are in organizations that inherently train us all to be the same, right? We have boot camp and we have the academy that we go to, whatever that may be. The whole purpose, and we know the saying, we build you up or we break you down to build you back up. And the way they build you up is to literally all be the same. So how do we be authentic and vulnerable and transparent in organizations that inherently want us to be sort of the same, at least initially? So I think that makes sense at the very beginning, you know, when you're at, literally we call it the Marine Corps depot. Like we're literally making Marines at a depot. So at that stage, that makes sense. But after we're put through, you know, after we're put into leadership positions, then what? Do we know ourselves as individuals? Do you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your personality traits? I think it's important to really look inward and figure out what those are, and then use those as strengths. When you're being somebody else, that's a complete waste of time. I tried to do that when I was at the basic school in Quantico. I was a just newly commissioned lieutenant, big bad Marine, thought I knew everything, and I was miserable trying to be somebody else that I thought I had to be. I tried to be serious. I tried to like yell. It was not a good look at all. I did not succeed at all, and I was very unhappy. Being authentic means looking at yourself, looking at your personality, and thinking about how your traits can actually be strengths. So after I figured out, okay, I'm not this mean this mean person. I'm going to be myself. Since that moment, I have been criticized as being too nice and too bubbly, but that's how I get through to people. That's how I communicate. My Marines know that when I'm talking to them, I'm being honest and vulnerable. I can never be mean because that's not me. I learned to be kind and caring while also being strong at the same time. And that's something I'm still working on, but that's me trying to be continually honest with myself and figuring out where and when, I need to pull back a little bit. There are definitely times when I have had Marines in my office who have made a mistake, and instead of screaming at them, because that's not my leadership style, I'm more of the disappointed dad, that I expected more of you, I'm very disappointed, I thought that you were better than this. And I will tell you I've had tears because of that, because I'm not going to scream. If I started yelling at them, they'd probably laugh at me. Leadership is fluid. So I am a completely different leader now than I was a year ago. And a year from now, I'll probably be very different. So to me, being authentic means being vulnerable about my experiences with my people and helping them learn from what I have been through and know that I'm being fully honest with them and I'm showing my true self. So pictures up here. So these are my students again up at the top. And then this bottom photo was at a women's leadership symposium that was in Norfolk, Virginia in July with all women Marines. And we had an opportunity just to have the convention with just us, which was really, really awesome. Okay. Continuous learning and adapting. So we are never done learning. No matter what level you're at right now, you're never going to be done learning. We are professional sponges. So there's always something more to learn, and it's our responsibility to be proficient, but that's something we're always going to be working on. So no matter how many books you read, no matter what, you're still going to be learning, and it's a never-ending process. So kind of going back to humility a little bit, so we are creatures of comfort. So we like being by our computers. What I think is important to do is when we remove ourselves from behind our desks and we take time to go ask our Marines, what is this you're working on? What is it that you do? Simple things like that. I'm a logistics officer, so I'm in charge of a lot of different Marines. I do a lot of different jobs. I will never probably be under a truck turning a wrench unless something very, very bad is happening in the world. But it's important for me to go to my Marine who's a mechanic and say, hey, can you show me what you're working on? And they will be so over the moon to explain their job to you. And it's important to show interest in them and what they're doing. So another example, the biggest example probably of me trying to learn and adapt is my social media following. So 2 years ago, it was just a private account, nothing interesting, nothing special about it. And my students were the ones who encouraged me to start talking about leadership, start posting things. One of them, do people know what a reel is? Raise your hand if you know what it is. Okay, so it's like a TikTok video sort of thing. So one of my students was like, ma'am, you should make a reel. And I was like, I know what's a reel, I don't know what that is. And then they literally showed me. And then it became a morale boosting activity for all of us where they were like, yes, let's make a reel real quick. And we do whatever little trending dance or whatever. They thought it was hilarious. And then we'd post it. And then literally from there, it just became what it is. So has anyone, okay, here's another question. I think I know the answer already, but raise your hand if you've heard of the app Be Real. Okay, a few. So very interesting. It's a new app that just came out where basically once a day you just take a picture. Automatically takes a picture of like the back camera and then the front camera, and just once a day, and it's called like Be Real or whatever. So apparently, when you open a new app and it shows you can sync your contacts and it shows who in your contacts use the app. There were 4 people that I knew that were using it, and the rest, literally 90%, were students that I had saved as my contacts. So just an interesting trend, just to for us to think about these new apps, these new ways these kids are communicating, and for us to be kind of with the times if we can be, because these kids are using TikTok, they are using Instagram, they're not using Facebook, so I'm just saying in terms of recruiting and retention and communicating, knowing what apps they're using. I don't know if that's the next TikTok or if that's even anything, but it's just an interesting data point where I noticed literally all my contacts, the only ones using that app were 18, 19, 20-year-olds. So encouraging creativity. So kind of going back to the last question, but how do you foster and encourage creativity in an organization that is founded on publications and checklists and doctrines and all these things that we are that we have memorized? Where in that is there room for creativity? As leaders, we need to think critically and find better ways to accomplish our mission. The way to improve our processes is through our people, the ones who are actually on the ground. They are the ones who are living it, who can find the deficiencies and think of ways for things to be improved. Foster a team that has a winning spirit and build your team with the winning mindset. So something that I like to do when I'm new to a unit is I will sit down my people individually in my office, get to know them, and ask them, what are some ways that we can improve? What do you recommend? What are the issues that you see? And you can imagine how honest your people will be when you give them that platform to actually air some of their grievances and tell you about what issues they see and write all those things down and then ask them, well, how do you recommend we fix it? And put that back on them and have that buy-in and have them think of the ways to improve the system and then go from there. So when someone comes to you with an idea, how you respond is really important. If you dismiss them and tell them, this won't work because we don't have the money, we don't have the time, that's a bad idea, whatever, they will never come to you ever again. You have cut that person off forever. Be patient, understanding when your people make mistakes. One thing I tell my Marines when I do my initial counselings with them is, hey, I would rather you try 100 things and 99 of them fail than never trying anything new. Okay, saying no. So this one's a little tricky, but it's one I think it's important to recognize when you see it's happening. So this is my example for this. So October 1st, 2019, one of my Marines killed himself. It was a very, very bad situation. One of my other Marines found him. The whole unit, my whole company was in shambles. So we, of course, had missions to be doing. We had runs. I had my motor transport operators. We had things to be doing. We had all these taskers that we had to do today. But as a leader, you have to recognize, hey, like, we're not doing any of this today. Like, we're focusing on this situation. We're going to support each other. We're going to be here. As a leader, like, I'm going to be here with my family to grieve this situation, but you're going to be at risk if anyone's on the road today. So we are not letting this happen. So saying no to protect your people is really important. Another thing as a leader, when you're kind of in that middle position where you have a boss telling you, hey, I want you to cut the general's grass, I want you to clear out the gutters, which were no kidding tasks that I was asked for my company, which, by the way, were not landscapers. That was not my Marine's job, but because we had people to do those things, we were frequently asked. I had to have the internal fortitude to kind of turn around to him and say, I cannot support that today. I have to protect my people and let them do their jobs. So you can't just have your head on a hinge all the time, even though we want to impress our boss or be the yes man. That's not our job. Our job is to make sure the mission gets accomplished and protect our people. And yes, maybe go back to your boss and say, can't do it today, but maybe, and provide that solution. But we cannot just always say, accept every single ask of us, because we're taking away from what we really have to get done. So these are the ones. These are the kids that are the ones doing the job. And I don't know if there's a pointer on this, but so top picture, bottom right, Sergeant Vasquez, he's the one who I was referring to earlier. Ownership, integrity, and internal fortitude. So when something goes wrong, how do you respond? It doesn't matter who is to blame, and I feel like in our organizations, at least the Marine Corps I've seen, we spend a lot of time figuring out, well, I told this person to do it, so it's not my fault, or I told this person to do it, it's not my fault, and then we do this pointing the finger game, and so much time is wasted on that. It's my fault, whatever, let's just move on and get it done. So having that just taking ownership of it and moving on and fixing it. As a leader, it's always our fault, and we must be willing to put our name on the line. So when something isn't right, do you say something? Courage is important as a leader. Standing up for what you believe in, no matter what happens, and having the courage to say this isn't right. One thing, so when I was a company commander, there were 2 companies. So it was my company and then another captain who had a different company. So one time we took our entire battalion to the field for a field exercise for 2 weeks. We, of course, got there early, set everything up. The battalion commander comes down and says to the other company commander, how's everything going? What's it look like down here? And he says, sir, everything's great, no issues, everything's perfect. He said, okay. Now I'm going to turn to Jackie and ask her because I know she's going to tell me the truth. So I guess just what person are you going to be? Are you going to be the yes man, the everything is good? But how else is the boss going to know when we have issues? Like, it's our job to tell the truth. Like, what do we have to hide? You know, these are the issues. This is what we can do better next time. And that's it. It's not that hard, but for some reason we want to just hide the issues from the boss and protect him. But ultimately, he or she is the one that needs to know what's going on. And once you lie once, you're kind of going to be known for that. You're not going to be trusted. One more thing that's hard to do on this ownership integrity. So holding people accountable. I think that's something that we throw around and we don't do a very good job of because we don't have the time, we don't have the energy, the mission keeps going. So when someone messes up, it's really easy for us to say, okay, you're not doing this anymore, we're going to throw it onto this other person who is competent. But that's doing both people a disservice, right? Like, this person now has less work, less responsibility, they're not growing, they're just kind of stunted, and they're not getting any paperwork filed or any sort of guidance or mentorship. And then this person who does do a good job is just getting more and more work loaded onto them, and they get paid the same. And people see that. So I think holding people accountable takes internal fortitude to sit this person down and say, here's where you didn't meet the standard, here's where you failed, here's how you can do better next time. And that takes time and energy and effort, but it's a conscious effort that we have to put forth. I didn't have a cool picture for this slide, but that's me on a rope doing a re-enlistment. I thought that was cool. So our interactions with others literally can have life-altering impacts on the people that we lead. It's hard to see, but this is a text from Calvin Fernandez. So after he got into Xavier University, every single quarter, he sends me his grades. Here's a picture of my mentor. So I do the mentor program where I facilitate mentors. And this is someone who wanted to be a supply officer in the Navy. Totally not my job, but I helped her get in contact with someone. And she got accepted to OCS, got accepted to the Navy supply program. Here's a picture or an Instagram message from someone in the Army who finished OCS and said thank you. And then this is a student at the Naval Academy who's saying, hey, I don't know if I should be a Marine or in the Navy, can you help me? And I said, hey, yep, let's chat. Here's my number. No hesitation. Personally, so my entire career could have been very, very different. So, and this is why our interactions with our people are so important. So when I was at the Naval Academy as a midshipman, I was an information technology major and I sucked at it. Like, I was really bad, I hated it. And I thought I liked computers. I took a little intro class and I was like, I love this is so easy. And then the next semester, boom, they like slammed us with learning all these different computer languages and I was like, this isn't for me, I can't do this. So I sought advice from who I thought was a mentor, a good person, he was a Marine. one of my instructors, and I said, "Sir, I'm really struggling at my major. Maybe I should change." And he said, yeah, okay. I think you should maybe do oceanography because you're going to be a surface warfare officer. And I said, "Well, sir, I actually don't want to be a surface warfare officer." And he looked at me very confused and he said, "Well, what else could you possibly do? What else could you possibly do? Like, you are not capable of anything else other than the community that, no offense to them, but if you say you want to be a SWO, then you're going to be a SWO at that college." So if I had listened to that and walked away being like, wow, I guess this Marine thinks I'm not capable of being a Marine, so I guess I should let that go. So that one conversation that I had with this person could have completely changed my life. So not only did I stay an information technology major, but I also became a Marine. So everything you say and do is being watched. So what kind of example are you setting? I had a meeting with one of my students at the Naval Academy Prep School. So I actually also had Coast Guard students, interestingly, and this girl was going to be going to the Coast Guard. And I would have goal-setting meetings, and I would say, okay, I need you to do a little bit better on math. I need you to run a little faster, whatever I was saying. And I said, okay, do you have any questions for me? Do you need anything from me? And she, 18-year-old, said, "Ma'am, can you teach me how to use an ATM?" And my reaction to that, of course, and initially it was like, oh my gosh, is she seriously asking? I'm a captain in the Marine Corps, but that is the most important question that she had at that time. And if I literally laughed at her or I said, "Are you serious?" or anything, do you think she would ever have knocked on my door ever again? Absolutely not. So those are the kinds of things that, if somebody's asking you a question, we cannot dismiss them, we cannot write them off, because we don't know what we're going to cut off if we just, don't treat them very well. So some of the immediate things people see matter. So how we initially respond and how we look, how we carry ourselves, how we wear our uniform. If I am not setting the example, how can I expect my people to do the right thing? How can I expect them to work out if I'm not working out? How can I expect my people to spend time with their family if I'm at work all the time? Showing them that we can manage a work-life balance is really important. So everything we do and say is being watched. You have the power to make life-altering impacts on people and can truly influence the next generation. At the end of the day, it takes empathy and showing others that everyone starts somewhere. And with that, do you have any questions for me? Yes.
So, excuse me. First, I'd like to thank you for your presentation, because as an older person, I don't get a chance to interact with 18, 19, and 20-year-olds in a leadership capacity. And just your presentation now starts to get me thinking differently regarding not only recruitment, but what's going on in these young men and women's minds. So I really want to thank you for, thank you. Somewhat of an eye-opening approach to how to deal with some of our younger generation, because it's also when it comes into training, when you get 21 and 22-year-olds, some of them are visual learners because they are on social media or playing video games and, not necessarily in the books, and their communication style. So how did you feel communicating with them one-on-one as opposed to, was it more of text messages, social media aspect, or was it the one-on-one with those that were under your charge?
I think it depends. So for my social media, for example, when I'm trying to speak to any high schooler or anybody that could possibly, because our kids, they're scrolling anyway, right? They're already doing this. So if I can possibly get someone's attention and be like, stop, look at this cool thing, and in under 30 seconds get some sort of message across to them, and maybe get them to consider the Marine Corps, consider thinking about something, then I alter my message to that. I have no acronyms, make it so any high schooler can understand. But when I do have my Marines or my students, I can get into the weeds of the goal setting and the deep conversations. I will schedule 20-minute increments with them to get really very thorough with them. So I think it just depends on what my message is and what my end state is. Yeah, I don't know if that answers, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
One thing I didn't even really touch on too is the importance of family for them in the military. And I don't really like this mindset, and I worked really hard to try to change it, at least with my own scope of responsibility. But we have this mindset of, oh, well, they're 18, so cut the family off. Like, they need to be adults. But a lot of times it's not only the kids' first time in this organization, and they're new to the military, but it's their families as well. And I think it's really important to involve the families as much as possible. Like, so for me, when I have students or even my Marines, I'll ask for the email addresses of their parents or their spouse or whoever, and just regularly keep in contact with them, just to establish that trust and that buy-in. Because who, at the end of the day, are the ones talking to their son or daughter being like, oh, I think you should get out because they don't treat you very well and we don't know anything. Or that parents, coaches, teachers, they are the most influential people on these kids' lives. So when we this is kind of like a random thought I just had, but I think trying really hard to work on family involvement really pays off in the long run.
Captain Barnum, we have a question here in the back.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, Captain. I just want to salute you for your service to the country. I want to get your thoughts on time management as a leader and how you view that to keep yourself efficient in your daily activities.
I'm a list girl, so I bring my agenda everywhere. I will literally write everything that I have to do down so it's out of my brain, because I will spend a lot of time and energy thinking, don't forget this, don't forget this, don't forget this, and then I'm distracted from what I'm actually doing. So as soon as I write it down, then it's at least off of my brain, and then I will basically triage my things I have to do or what has to be done today. So things that have deadlines or things that absolutely need to be done right now because my boss wants it. And then just one at a time, try to get them done. I can't, and I think it's been proven that we actually aren't capable of multitasking the way that we think, because then we just get a little bit done of a lot of things but never get a full thing done. So I would rather, for me, spend an hour getting one thing done at a time, and it helps me, cerebrally, and, feeling my hand. I will complete a task and then write it just so I can check it off. So that's kind of how I manage, is just the checklist and then prioritizing. And then things that can be delegated, annotating, hey, this is this person's responsibility, and getting that out fast. I think we spend a lot of time thinking and planning, and then we don't give our people enough time. It's that 2/3, 1/3 rule. If you're a Marine, does anyone know what that is? If you're not a Marine. So you have time to complete a task. 1/3 of the time is for you to plan and figure out, and then the 2/3 of the rest of the time is for your people to get it done. So keeping that in mind as well.
Do we have any other questions for Captain Barnum? Hang on.
As people are probably used to, I'm what the officers, keep you between this and libo, so I'm sorry.
Hi, in terms of authenticity, which you mentioned earlier, how would you say that your authenticity as a leader has changed through the course of your rank or just experiences? What caused them to change? Because I think, early on it may have been a certain stance, and then authenticity may grow over time. So what would you suggest to a young leader as they go through to maintain authenticity?
That's tricky. I want to say that's what people need, is they just need to see someone being authentic. Because at the end of the day, I'm not different. People like to be like, oh, you're so brave. Someone literally has described me as being brave for being on social media. That, I don't put my life on the line like everybody in this room does. I'm not brave by any means, but apparently that's groundbreaking. And that just shows that there's this gap that exists. And our younger generation is craving someone to identify with. And I think just encouraging them to be yourself and not let the chirpers, is what my students used to call them, because I get a lot of hate on my social media and whatnot, but they're just chirpers. Like, they're just people with no names. And I know that's difficult for our younger generation dealing with cyberbullying. That's a huge issue. Like, fortunately, I'm turning 30 this year, so like it's no skin off my back at this point. But like our younger kids who are, 16, 17, 18 get very, very affected by hate comments, and just trying to mentor them through that and be a resource for them and keep being positive and encouraging them to be authentic and to be themselves as much as possible.
Do you think recruitment, are you having trouble with recruitment into the armed forces, into the Marines? Because I know we have trouble in today's climate recruiting people to be in police or the sheriff's office or anything like that. Is it similar with the armed forces?
Yeah, especially with COVID. I'm not a recruiter, so I don't know the exact numbers, but
you deal with them sometimes in the mentoring. I know you deal with questions.
Yep. Yeah, which is pretty interesting to me. Like, if someone reaches out to me first because they've seen me on Instagram and they haven't even reached out to a recruiter, it just shows that we either don't have enough recruiters out there or we're not getting the word out. So there's like a gap in communication. So recruiters are now actually required to have social media accounts. So yeah, it is an issue, and that's why, I think, to be honest too, like, I think that's part of my success on social media is because I'm not a recruiter. So I'm not having to meet quotas or get contracts, and I'm not coming across as a used car salesman because I don't care. I do care in my heart, but I'm not like selling the Marine Corps to people. I'm just talking as a logistics officer, as my own experience and what I've learned, and people just get inspired by that and then end up wanting to be part of it.
Any other questions?
Is that it?
I think so.
Thank you, I appreciate it.